how did you get started in real estate in general? You were in a W-2 job, and then were you just picking up single family rentals along the way, or were you ever doing that full time? Or give us a little backstory there.
That's a great question. And I want to comment on the residential versus commercial piece that you said, because I think that this is important. It took me 20 years of investing to create $4 million worth of equity. And I mean, very, very little cash flow, above what the debt service was here in Hawaii, right? So 20 years. And then it took me basically 18 months to do the exact same thing in the commercial space. So what took me 20 years in residential took me 18 months in commercial. And so I would never go back to investing in residential, even if I was starting, if I were to take all those lessons, everything that I learned. I wanted to make sure, because I think that was a very important point that you made. But when I got my start over 20 years ago, I had met my wife at college. So I didn't come to Maui to chasing, rainbows and waterfalls and surf, which most people would think. I actually came here chasing a girl, which ended up being my wife. And I had to make a very, very difficult decision. I came here after my freshman year of school. And right before we were going to go back to school, she dropped the bomb. She said, "I'm not going back." And I'm like, okay. So now I have to make this life choice of, do I continue I was raised by a single mom. If I look back at the sacrifices that she made to put me in the position to have this great education, it's hard to articulate how important that was in my life and her. But I've fallen in love with this girl, and I'm like, man, I know I'm going to be with this girl forever. What do I do? If I go back to college, it's saying goodbye. So it was this moment. And obviously, I ended up making the difficult decision to break my mom's heart with education. I stayed here. And right after that, I read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, this is when Rich Dad, Poor Dad was like written. It was like, it had just come out. It just hit the shelf. So that's how long ago. But when I read that book, I recognized, okay, here's my path. I can do this. Because remember, I'm on Maui, and when you think of Maui, it's not like you're thinking about, oh man, you can really start a great career and get ahead. It's an island out here in the Pacific. So when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I knew that I could do something. I could do something special in it. And my first real estate investment that wasn't the first thing that I did. I mean, I had to go and learn, take the lumps. I started flipping cars, got absolutely scammed, lost my 10 grand that I'd worked forever to save. And then I'm like, that's okay. I believe in myself. I can do this. And then I went to the next thing, and it was, now I started studying day trading. Man, I saved another 10 grand, and I went and invested in, and man, that went worse than getting scammed in the flipping cars. That was done and gone, like boom, it was fire, it was out, right? But I knew that because I felt like real estate, I knew in like the depth of me that real estate would be the route, but I was like, I don't have any money. How can I go invest in real estate? And so, look, it had taken me so long to earn 10 grand and then lose it, and earn 10 grand and lose it, that I'm like, all right, I'm going to go raise capital. I'm going to go and write a letter. And back then we didn't have the freaking phones. And so I literally had my mom send me her contacts list, and I hand wrote a letter, and I mailed it out to her entire contact list, literally made copies down at Kinko's and bought a book of stamps and mailed them all out. And thank the good Lord, I had an aunt and uncle that responded, and they said, we'll do it. And my terms were, I wanted $10,000. I'd pay 20%, and I would do my very best to pay that back sooner than 12 months. So, and I did. I made my first real estate investment. We did a little house hack. We used that $10,000 to purchase a home that had an attached studio. My wife and I lived in the studio while we fixed everything up. I was able to save money in my waiter job at the time, and take that. I paid him back in 6 months plus the 20%. So I paid him $12,000 in 6 months, and the rest is history. I still own that little home that we purchased for $183,000.
Wow.
We did little did I know it, but it ended up being the BRRRR. I went and refinanced then, and then we went and bought our next property. And I didn't know any of these things. I was just navigating this on my own back then. So that little property leveraged my next property that I still own here on Maui as well. But that little property that we purchased for $183,000, and never once did we pay a mortgage payment. It was always paid by a tenant, and to this day is. But that thing's worth like $900,000. But remember what I said. This is over the course of 20 plus years. And so that appreciation and that it happened, it cash flows very little even to this day, but it's gained appreciation and equity and tenant, pay down of the principal. So if that's the only thing that you're going to do, you're going to take action and make the step, and it's in residential, then it will pay off over time. But our whole goal in creating wealth and cash flow is to compress time. And how can we do this in a smart way, and just use and leverage the opportunities that exist in today's world to make things happen a little quicker than waiting 20 years. That's the story of how it all started.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome story. I think it's really cool.